Mash's life at the Academy of Magic and his way to become a divine visionary has begun, despite the fact that he could use magic at all. One ordinary day, Mash sat at his desk eating cream puffs and suddenly remembered that he needed a broom for tomorrow's lesson, and he wanted to borrow it from his roommate because he had accidentally bought a burdock instead of a broom. Finn lent him the broom. The next day the students had to learn how to fly with the broom. The teacher said that in order to fly, they had to tell the broom to fly, and control the flow of magic from their bodies. All the students were able to use magic and make the broom fly. Mash also tried to make the broom fly by saying the word, fly, many times. But then he remembered that he could not use magic. Then there was another student who looked down upon Mash and rebuked Mash, saying that people like Mash were slowing down everyone else and that he was embarrassing everyone. Then Mash used his power and the broom jumped into his hand. Another student got angry and said that Mash had been cheating. After that, the time trials began and Mash was invited to take part in a race. The loser was to be the winner's errand boy. Mash accepted the challenge. When the teacher looked at Mash, she remembered that Mash had broken a lock in class and the teacher wondered if Mash could fly a broomstick. When the race started, Mash won right away. No one realized what had happened because Mash was too fast. The teacher marveled that Mash had broken the world record. Finn was the only one who could see everything in detail. She commanded, start, and Mash threw the broom, then jumped in the same direction and caught up with the broom himself. In the end, Mash won the bet and his opponent got angry. Mash gave up the bet because he felt sorry for his opponent. Suddenly someone covered his mouth with magic and another student appeared. He introduced himself as Lloyd Cavil, but Mash heard, Spud Cabbage. Cavil apologized for the other student's behavior and he was intrigued by what Mash had done, and offered to meet for a chat after class. Then Cavil began to mock the student for not being able to defeat Mash. He was violent and liked to beat up other students. Meanwhile, Mash discovered from his friend Finn that Cavil is the big bully at their school. Cavil is feared because he's the son of a high-ranking member at the Bureau of Magic. Many words were too difficult to Mash, so Finn summarized it by saying that the deputy director of the school is in close relations with his family, so Finn advised not to cross him. After class, Mash cooked some cream cakes and he would be glad to share them with his father. So, he remembered the police officer Brad's words and wanted more strongly to become the top student in this academy. Meanwhile, Cavil waited for Mash, but Mash had forgotten about the meeting and had hurt Cavil's ego. The next day Mash took the textbook out of his briefcase, but it was torn and Cavil suddenly appeared. Mash apologized for forgetting the meeting. Then Cavil said he could help him to become a divine visionary and he could use his connections to help him, but Mash had to do whatever he said. Mash agreed and he had to become his errand boy. The next day Mash found his textbook torn again and wanted to borrow it from his friend Finn. Finn refused, but Mash thought he had agreed and thanked him. Finn was confused by Mash's behavior. Mash gave him some brownies to thank him for lending him Finn's broom. Then Mash said he was glad to have a good man like Finn as a friend. After the lesson, Cavil mocked Mash and looked down upon him. Mash didn't mind that he was being bullied by Cavil, who had accidentally spilled all the water on the floor and asked Mash to wipe all the water off. Mash wiped the floor perfectly and realized he had Finn's book. Cavil then gives another task to Finn to burn Mash's clothes, but Finn said with fear in his eyes that he would no longer obey Cavil's orders because he didn't want to bring any more harm to Mash. Cavil became angry and began taunting Finn to beg for forgiveness. At this point, Mash looked for Finn to return his book, but found that Finn was crippled. Mash was worried about Finn, and he confessed that he was the one who had been messing up his textbooks all along. He had been ordered to do so, and he was scared and obeyed. Finn cried and regretted that he had done such a mean thing, because Mash considered him a good friend. Finn tearfully apologized to Mash. Mash was very angry about bullying his friend Finn. At this time Cavil asked Finn to apologize to him as sincerely as to Mash. Then Mash angrily hit Cavil's head on the floor and demanded to apologize to Finn. And at this moment Finn was worried about Mash because he could be expelled from the school for beating. After Mash beat up Cavil, he realized that he could be expelled from the school. Deputy Director Farman said that Mash was thinking in the right direction. Everyone was surprised by his appearance. Farman said that Mash and Finn were facing expulsion for beating up Cavil. Besides, he looked upon them because they were regular students. Suddenly, Mash attacked the school deputy. Farman tried to fight back with magic, but he failed. Then he dug a hole in the concrete floor and threw him in there to bury him. Farman threatened Mash that people like him would be kicked out whenever and however they wanted. Mash replied that if he was kicked out, he would find him anytime and bury him. After that, MASH was summoned to Director Wahlberg's office. He thought he had been summoned for cooking cream cakes in the dorm kitchen without permission. Wahlberg replied that he had been summoned for beating up a student and burying a deputy. The director showed MASH the Bureau of Magic's expulsion order. The principal then reminded that the Magic Bureau is the highest governing body of the country and divine conduction is the heart of this organization. Suddenly, the director said that he was on his side because MASH is a good person who was only defending his friend. The director didn't backquote like the current management of Magic, so he hoped that a good man like MASH would become a divine providence that would make the world better. Then the director told the conditions to become a divine visionary, but MASH passed out because the information was too much. The principal briefly described the conditions to MASH and said that he would deal with the Magic Bureau and the deputy, and MASH went to his room. MASH was recognized by the other students of the academy. In the following days he was telling Finn how to bake cream cakes, and suddenly Tom, a student, appeared. Suddenly the girls jumped on Tom and started laughing at MASH's mushroom hairstyle. Tom invited MASH to a flying broomstick competition. MASH tried to explain to Tom that he couldn't fly a broom, but Tom wouldn't let him go and made MASH to join the team. When the game started, MASH stood with his broom and watched the game. The spectators started throwing garbage at him because he hadn't started flying, and MASH wanted to go home, but he remembered that he had to behave well and he must not let his father down.